you. Going to get into our message. We are in chapter 21 of 2 Samuel. We're nearing the end of our journey of David as king. So King Me, the series ends next week on Father's Day. I'm so excited to go through that message with you guys. Just if you ever want to know how to kill the giants in your life, next Sunday will be a Sunday that we will walk through that. How do we become giant killers? And we're going to walk through that next Sunday, and how can we help others? How can we train others to be giant killers? And we'll be talking about that next Sunday. And then we'll start a brand new series on my last Sunday called Success in Succession. And we'll see. I'll start that with that last Sunday, but then in July we'll continue that journey of what did it look like for David to prepare for who was next. Because God has who's next. Bags. Now at age 13, at least when this was posted, it says she was 13, Sawyer continues to sell her books and bags and has spoken at more than 150 different churches, schools, nonprofits, service clubs, businesses, organizations, and other groups. And she's raised over. But just as I read the story, it's in first person, okay? Betty was my babysitter when I was around 5 and 6 years old. Betty was always kind and loving and sincerely enjoyed my company. She was always in a good mood and had a son about my age named Kenny, who I had a small crush on. Betty would take me on her errands with her during the day, and when visiting her friends, would always introduce me in such a kind way, making me feel very special. I always remember Betty rescuing a family of baby bunnies in her backyard one day, and she initially tried feeding them using baby doll bottles. I have a great memory of Betty giving me my first soup memory of Campbell's mushroom soup for lunch one afternoon. And it was so good. I told my mother all about it when I came home. My own mother never served soup ever. To this day, I make many soup recipes for my family, and I find it very comforting that my famous homemade healing chicken noodle soup recipe I owe to Betty. Betty also came to my first grade school birthday party. One Sunday, she babysat me and even brought me to her church that day. I remember Betty feeling proud of me, showing her friends how I sat quietly and ladylike in the pew. She was the best. I wish I could tell her today how much she impacted my life. She only babysat me for maybe 1 year at most. But the kindness and joy she showed me towards myself lasted a lifetime, and I'll never forget it. Both of those stories are great stories of honor in completely two different ways. They're incredible stories, and aren't they even powerful? It's something about honor. Honor brings a smile to your face. Honor lifts people up, not just those who receive the honor. Everyone gets lifted up by stories of honor, big or small. And if we really even sum up the 10 Commandments, we could sum it up with this: honor God and honor others. In our story today, from David's time of being king in Israel, we will come across honor, and we'll come across the antithesis of honor, which is dishonor. This dishonor has such a powerful effect on everyone in Israel. But when David counters the dishonor with honor, it too affects everyone in Israel, but for the better. So let's explore our passage today, starting in verse 1 of chapter 21 in 2 Samuel. There was a famine during David's reign that lasted for 3 years. So David asked the Lord about it. And the Lord said, the famine has come because Saul and his family are guilty of murdering the Gibeonites. So this famine, I just want to first of all, the famine's not a strange phenomenon for David. And it's not a strange phenomenon for that part of the world. It's the length of the famine that catches David's attention, that 3 years. So he asks God about the famine. And God said it was because Saul had done some nasty things as king to a group of people called the Gibeonites. Verse 2. So the king summoned the Gibeonites. They were not part of Israel, but were all that was left of the nation of the Amorites. The people of Israel had sworn not to kill them, but Saul, in his zeal for Israel and Judah, had tried to wipe them out. So it's interesting. Saul tried to wipe them out here, even though the time frame that it's talking about is actually Joshua's day. In Joshua's day, the Israelites, as they were conquering the promised land, they made peace with the Gibeonites. Now, they made peace with the Gibeonites, and they kept their promise even after they learned that the Gibeonites were deceiving them. The Gibeonites lived in an area of Israel. I can't remember exactly where it's at, but they said they lived far away, and they were saying to Joshua, make peace with us because we live far away. We don't want you to come and attack us one day. And so they did. They made an oath before the Lord that they would not attack the Gibeonites. When they learned that the Gibeonites actually lied and deceived them, we can pick up in verse 19 of Joshua chapter 9 and learn this. But the leaders replied, since we have sworn an oath in the presence of the Lord, the God of Israel, we cannot touch them. We must let them live, for divine anger would come upon us if we broke our oath. If we honored our promises and oaths like the people of God did in this moment, oh my goodness, our relationships with others would change, our country would change, our community would change if we were just honorable. Like the Israelites were honorable to people who even deceived them. Why would divine anger come? If they chose to dishonor the oath that they had made. So Saul's act of trying to wipe out the Gibeonites, even if it was for his country's sake, was an act of dishonor. What's interesting is how this act seems like an honorable thing, doesn't it? If you go back to verse 2, there's this little phrase from verse 2 that says, in his zeal for Israel and Judah. Remember, they always talked about the country of Israel in the form of the two different major groups. The two tribes, the tribe of Judah and another tribe, two tribes, and then Israel was the other 10 tribes. So when I say Israel and Judah, they are talking about the entire nation. Saul has a zeal for the nation of Israel. In the zeal for the nation of Israel, he does what sounds like and looks like an honorable thing. I'm going to get rid of these people who don't belong here. But to God, it is dishonorable that they do it. What we might think is honorable, God sees as dishonorable. Saul's act of dishonor was so unacceptable to God that he caused a famine to come into the land for 3 years. So we need to realize that dishonoring of others is equal to dishonoring of God. Dishonoring leaders, dishonoring parents, dishonoring your spouse, dishonoring your boss, dishonoring yourself. These are all ways we dishonor God. Don't dismiss dishonor. God doesn't. Rather, when someone is dishonored, we need to find a way to atone for it. We need to find a way. That's what David does here. It wasn't David who dishonored the Gibeonites, yet it is God who tells David to make it right. David didn't do this. It's not his mess. He didn't make it. And we talked about this in a deeper dive a few weeks ago, about Absalom and David. Both of them, David made the mess, didn't clean it up. Absalom didn't make the mess, and he didn't clean it up. When God tells you to do something, even if you aren't the one responsible for what is there, God tells you to do it, do it. God is telling David to clean the mess up, and David says, okay, I will. That is the honorable thing to do. And he does it, not because he even thinks the Gibeonites deserve it. He's doing it because God is telling him to do it. So he's honoring God in this moment. Remember, David was big on showing honor. Not where or to whom it was due, but where and to whom he was around. He honored Saul by serving Saul even after Saul attempted to kill him 5 times. He still would serve Saul. He honored Jonathan in Jonathan's death by protecting his son. And in this moment, we'll see in a moment what the Gibeonites ask for. And David is honoring, even in this moment, we won't see the verse, but David chooses not to let Jonathan's son be one who is killed in this moment that we'll see shortly. Because he was huge on honor. And when Goliath dishonored God, David took matters into his own hands with God's help and defeated the giant. When David dishonored God and was called out for his sin, he repented. It was all about honor for David because it's all about honor to God. For my 25 years of pastoral ministry, I've always tried to follow David's example of honor. I have always known this to be true, that if you show me where or who you honor, we can see where you succeed. But if you show me where or who you dishonor, we can see where you fail. So because honor is so crucial, David meets with the Gibeonites, and he asks them, how can he atone for Saul's dishonor? Verse 3. David asked them, what can I do for you? How can I make amends so that you will bless the Lord's people again? Now, I want you just to notice, we've already kind of talked about this, but David takes ownership of someone else's mistake of dishonoring. And we've got to do the same. Sometimes we got to take ownership of others' mistakes to dishonor, and we need to atone for it. And I want you to notice that I've been saying atone for it, yet this verse says make amends, right? The reason why this is different is because the Hebrew word for amend here is actually better translated atone. To atone for something. This idea to atone would be that David is asking the Gibeonites, what can he do to cover over Saul's sin? What can he do to cover over the dishonor? See, when we understand the idea of atonement, like Jesus dying for us is atoning for our sins. The Day of Atonement is covering over the sins of the people for that last year. This is all about covering over, trying to do what is right. Atonement is the act of covering over something done wrong with something done right. So David atones for something that Saul ignored. And this is not a comparison between a sinful king and a sinless successor. No. This is simply a contrast in heart posture or heart attitude. Saul didn't have the right heart attitude. David did. That's why David is a man after God's own heart, because he had the correct heart attitude. What's your posture? What's your attitude? Do you ignore when God says to honor? Would you atone for what others ignore? The Gibeonites, they answered David's question. When David says, how can I make amends? How can I atone for this? And I think their answer is shocking, but I think David's answer to their answer is even more shocking. Verse 5 and 6. Then they replied, the Gibeonites replied, it was Saul who planned to destroy us, to keep us from having any place at all in the territory of Israel. So let 7 of Saul's sons be handed over to us, and we will execute them before the Lord of Gibeon on the mountain of the Lord. All right, the king said, I will do it. Now, that has got to mess with your mind, right? That's got to mess with your mind. So one thing that when you read commentaries, you'll see that 2 Samuel 21 is actually believed to have happened earlier in David's reign and not later. That it's kind of like an addition to 2 Samuel. And actually 21 through 24, a lot of times they think that these happened at different times and not happened at the end. They might have happened at the end, but they're likely that they didn't. So because a lot of Saul's sons have died, right? So we'll notice some of these things. But the fact that David says, I will do it, what we got to do is get our minds out of a 2023 context. And we got to get over to the Old Testament context. And we got to get ourselves to BC time. Like 900 something BC, and understand the context of what is taking place. Understand the context that David and the people follow the law of God. All right? And so when he hears this, he already knows this. Numbers 35, verse 30 says, all murderers must be put to death. Verse 33 and 34 say, this will ensure that the land where you live will not be polluted. For murder pollutes the land, and no sacrifice except the execution of the murderer can purify the land from murder. Verse 34, you must not defile the land where you live. God's talking, for I live there myself. I am the Lord who lives among the people of Israel. Just like God can't have anything to do with sin, he's essentially saying the land of Israel needs to be purified too. This is why the Day of Atonement happens every single year. It's the way that God could be with his people because the sins were forgiven that day. But here in this moment, because murder has happened and has not been dealt with, God is saying, you got to deal with this. I'm getting your attention with this famine, but you've got to deal with this. It may not sound right to you and me in 2023 that because Saul killed some of them, some of Saul's sons would be killed. But there's something about atoning for the sins that are done in God's land and from God's people. We can see that's why they were exiled and other things that happened. The death of the murderer, or in this case, 7 of Saul's sons, atones for the deaths of the Gibeonites that Saul had murdered. There's even, I've kind of hinted that there's this New Testament image of atonement that happens too, but I'll talk about that in my deeper dive this week. Let's now go to verse 9 and 10, and let's see what happens. Because the story, though we've talked a lot about atonement, this story is not about atonement. The story is about honor. And so we want to see that David honored the Gibeonites because Saul did not honor them. David honored God, though Saul did not honor. And now we see this lady, one of the moms of the 2 sons, with incredible honor. Her name is Rizpah. Verse 9. The men of Gibeon executed them. And by the way, even the word execute, it's possible that these men were, they were put on a pole, like skewered. Or they were possibly executed like a crucifixion. There's some images that I've seen in the commentaries they're talking about. The men of Gibeon, I executed them on the mountain before the Lord. So all 7 of them died together at the beginning of the barley harvest. Then Rizpah, daughter of Aiah, the mother of 2 of them, spread burlap on a rock and stayed there the entire harvest season. She prevented the scavenger birds from tearing at their bodies during the day and stopped wild animals from eating them at night. This mom of 2 of the slain men, named Rizpah, shows incredible love for her sons, but in also incredible sign of honor. She is there keeping birds away from their bodies. She is during the day. She is there at night keeping animals away from ravaging their bodies. And it says she did this through the entire harvest season. This means she was there for at least 6 months. For 6 months, Rizpah is keeping away the animals and the birds from touching the bodies of her 2 sons because of honor that she has for her 2 sons. For 6 months, day in, day out, nighttime, morning, you name it, she's there. She's keeping anything and anyone away from her 2 boys. And they're dead. Moms and dads, what if we honored our kids while they're alive, like Rizpah honored her kids when they're dead? And let's keep away the one who roars like a lion. Let's keep away the vultures of our culture. Let's keep away the things that want to ravage our kids and say, not on my watch. Not on my watch, and I will watch them till I die. I will make sure that I will do everything I can to honor them and protect them and save them and see that they are taken care of. Why do we have to wait when they pass away? Why not honor them when they're living? I understand why she did. It's a cultural thing, definitely in that context, but come on. Let's do what we need to do for our kids, because what we realize here is that what we see from her is that honor is powerful. It is powerful. It is so powerful that her act of love and honor sparked something in King David. It sparked something inside him. Let me show you verse 11 through 13. When David learned what Rizpah, Saul's concubine, had done, he went to the people of Jabesh Gilead and retrieved the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan. And then it gets this little parentheses here. When the Philistines had killed Saul and Jonathan on Mount Gilboa, the people of Jabesh Gilead stole their bodies from the public square of Bet Shean, where the Philistines had hung them. So David obtained the bones of Saul and Jonathan, as well as the bones of the men the Gibeonites had executed. David goes and he gives honor not just to Rizpah's 2 sons. He gives honor not just to the 5 other sons of Saul who were executed for what Saul did. And he doesn't just go and honor Jonathan, but he goes and honors the man who tried to kill him and hunt him down day in and day out for at least 1.5 years, named King Saul. Gets his bones. This is what we understand about honor. It's not just powerful, it's contagious. Honor is contagious. It like infected David. Rizpah's honor. So David just honored God. Rizpah honored her sons. And David sees for 6 months, I don't know how long he knows about it, but she honors her sons for 6 months. And David's like, dang girl, that's awesome. Look what you're doing. Wow. It's almost like I'm going to one up your honor. What if we did that? What if we decided in our world today, in our culture today, in our community today, we tried to one up each other with honor? Oh, you honored me with that? Well, I'm going to honor you with this. Oh, you honored me with that? Well, I'm going to honor you with... Well, you honored them, I'm going to honor them. What if we were so infected with honor? We have gone through 3 years of being worried about being infected with something called COVID-19 or whatever strain of it. And we're like, stay away, stay away. We get so fearful about it. I mean, every one of us got fearful at some point in 2020. Every one of us. And then I don't know how you dealt with it and what your political views were or not, but was it not like we're like social distance? But what honor does is draws you in to relationship. And don't we want to be drawn into relationship with God? Can I tell you that when you choose to honor others, it does not just make an impact on others. It gets the attention of heaven. I'll show it to you. I'll show it to you. Verse 14. Then the king ordered that they bury the bones in the tomb of Kish, Saul's father, at the town of Zelah in the land of Benjamin. After that, God ended the famine in the land. God did not end the famine when the 7 sons of Saul were executed. 7 sons of Saul were executed. And we know that at least 6 months go by where Rizpah is honoring her sons. David hears about her honoring and goes and honors her sons, the 5 other sons, Jonathan and Saul. And it is only after he honors all of them that heaven says, famine's done. You want your life to be changed? Honor those who God tells you to honor. Honor even when you don't feel like it. Honor even when you don't want to. Honor beyond honor. And when you see others honor others, one up that honor by honoring others more than they honored those others. But don't do it because you're trying to one up them. You're just trying to say, I'm trying to get the attention of heaven, because if I get the attention of heaven, it's going to do something on our land. It's going to change something around us. And so may honor be, can you be a conduit of honor? Because God brings honor to you. He wants it to flow through you. See, we think when I did the series Conduit last year, right before our Kingdom Builder offering, we thought that I was talking about money. Oh, no. Everything comes to us that God wants to flow through us to others. Wisdom, hope, love, peace, joy, resources, honor. Because God is the Atlantic Ocean. Everybody else is the North Sea. And we are the English Channel. Are we going to let honor flow from God through us, the channel, to others? Because God's honor doesn't just pop up out of everywhere. It doesn't just go, poof, I honored you today. God always will honor you through others. God wants you to honor others too. So let's get busy one-upping each other with honor. Give honor where honor is due, and it's always due there. But it's also due here. We need to honor each other. That's how powerful and contagious honor is. It grabs the attention of heaven. Let's be people of honor. Close your eyes for me. As Pastor Chris comes up to play the keyboard and get the worship community up here, we're going to sing Alabaster Jar one more time before we honor Pastor Chris and Shauna. And as we prepare to sing this, I get this visual in my head of the idea of allowing the toxic nature of dishonor to flow out of us too, so that we can truly let the beauty and power of godly honor to flow through us. So I know that my prayer points are: I need Jesus, I need to atone for dishonor, I need to go and honor someone. Maybe you're here and say, you know what, I need to get some toxic dishonor out of me, and let God's beautiful, powerful, heaven attention-getting honor flow through me. If that's you, if you want to be people of honor, even if maybe you feel like you don't have an ounce of dishonor in you, but you want to be a person of honor in a way you've never been, your response to that will be to stand and say, God, I lift my hands to you to be a person of honor. If that's you, right, just stand right now. Just stand right now. Just stand right now. So that's me. I want to be a person of honor. I want to be a person of honor. I want honor flowing, not just to me. I want honor flowing through me. And put your hands up in a sign of surrender. Let your life be the alabaster jar. Let your heart be the alabaster heart we're about to sing about. And let it just happen right now. Be a people of honor. Be a people of honor today. Be a people of honor. Let's sing it. Come on.